Welcome to the eighth episode of Weaviate Air. This is pretty amazing. We've been going through this every month for the past 8 months, and we're super excited to have you all, watching and listening to us. So today I have Erica, Dan, and Zen joining me, and we are hoping for an amazing episode as always. So like the usual, if you like the video, whether you're watching it live or you're watching it after, give us a like. That always helps us, maybe you put the Weaviate Air on the map more and make it more visible. Also, thank you for watching. Thank you for taking the time and see the things that we have to share with you. And the cool thing is, for those of you that join us live, come and ask questions as we go, right? This is the benefit. I think the episode 7 was one of my favorite because there were so many great questions that like we ran out of time. Even there were so many great discussions that we wanted to get into. So this is great. So so thank you for watching and listening to us. So we have a pretty packed agenda for today, and there's a bunch of topics that we'd want to discover, discuss, go over in general. The first one is running LLMs privately. So Zen is very keen on this topic, and he has some cool things prepared, even maybe a small demo, maybe slow demo, but demo nevertheless.
Just a small one.
Exactly. Then we would like to talk to you about ingesting PDFs to Weaviate. So that's something, Erica, you feel dearly about since you published a blog post about it yesterday. So that should be a good topic.
Close to my heart.
Very close to your heart, indeed. The topic that is close to Dan's heart is Weaviate Forum. It's something that we are launching today. Maybe some of you discover it randomly, maybe not, but we are officially launching it today during this Weaviate Air, which is pretty amazing. Next, I'd like to talk to you about something that I feel dearly and something close to my heart is some development experience improvements that we're planning around the Python client. So there's a proposal and we need your feedback. And the Python client is just going to be the first one that we want to do. There'll be other ones too. So yeah, if this is something that you find interesting, definitely bear with us for that. Then we'll have Dan one more time to talk to us about the new HowTo Search segment in the documentation. I think this is pretty awesome. This is definitely worth waiting for and learning. You probably already saw it, but it's in case you haven't, Dan will show you more all about it. And then we'll also like to talk about Weaviate Recipes. So this is something that Erica is cooking for us, pun intended. And so this is going to be great for sure. So that's the intro. This is the kind of things we want to do. And I will open the floor to Zen, who will talk to us about running LLMs locally.
All right. Awesome.
Zen,
Thanks, Sebastian.
should I share your screen, by the way?
No, we'll wait on that. I wanted to kind of
All right.
lay the groundwork. So about 2 weeks ago, our team was in Boston for the Open Data Science Conference, and I think the first most asked question we got was, "What are vector databases?" And then immediately after that, people were interested in this interface of vector databases and large language models, where you could give a large language model not just a prompt, but a prompt would retrieve documents from a vector database. And there was a lot of people that were coming up, and they were from fairly large companies, and they wanted to know how they could run large language models with vector databases privately, whether that's on their own cloud compute, whether that's on-prem. Their main concern was they didn't want employees to use a large language model with private company data. And so over the last week since then, we've seen a lot of large companies have banned the use of public language models, where you're calling an API, sending data back, and then getting the generated response. So this is something that's fairly important, and I think is front and center for a lot of big companies. So I wanted to talk about this topic. I'm working on a blog post around this as well, and there's a couple more things that are cooking up around this. But the main drive here is everyone wants to do this idea of retrieval augmented generation. And that's a fancy word for just saying, I want to run a vector database with a query, and then I want to take the retrieved documents from that query. So let's say I'm interested in the recent PGA golf tournament. I want to retrieve documents that are related to that are stored in my vector database, and then I want to say, um, tell me who overperformed based on expectations or something like this. Right? So it'll read through the documentation, it'll retrieve everything that's PGA related. That's the vector database's job, and then it will send that with a prompt to the large language model. And Typically how we've been doing this is by calling an API, and then we send the data as well as our prompt to the large language model that's remotely deployed, and then we get the response back. Um, the whole conversation was around how could we bring that large language model locally on-prem so that we can run it privately. So this entire ecosystem of the vector database, the client side, the employees that are within the company using the vector database, as well as the large language model that's generating responses as a result of your retrieved context. All of that should be private, whether on-prem or running on your own cloud solution. Right? And so this is a really fascinating topic because now you have to think about, you can't take advantage of the huge compute that companies are offering. When you call an API, they have optimized instances, clusters to run the inference for you and then send you the response back really quickly. You have to think about how you run it locally. You have to set up that infrastructure. Right? So I think this might only be relevant for the really big players who are able to maintain a very large on-prem cluster where they can actually do inference and model training and fine-tuning locally. But I wanted to kind of talk about this because I think people are really interested in it. So what we did is, Sebastian, if you share my screen now. So what we did is we created a quick demo with Private GPT, which is a repository that's pretty popular, and it essentially accomplishes this topic of running a vector database as well as running a large language model privately, locally on your laptop. Right? And that laptop part is fairly important later on, as you'll see. So the actual public repo is over here. You can have a look at this one. So what we did is we forked this, and then we got it to work with Weaviate as a vector database. And so you can go through. It's pretty straightforward. All you have to do is spin up a local instance of Weaviate, so through Docker, and then you can go and ingest your data. So here, what I've done is, in this particular case, so Weaviate is hiring quite a bit right now. I scraped all of the job postings and I put them into one text file. And these are all the postings that are live right now. And what the demo does for Private GPT, it goes through and it chunks it automatically. So it'll take 500 characters and it'll automatically chunk it. And then there's some repetition. So it'll include this and it'll include another 500 characters. This will be one separate document, and then you'll have another separate document, so on and so forth. And then when you run, Private GPT, so let me show you here. If you go here, all you need to do is, let me exit out of this. All you need to do is execute the Private GPT Python script, and then it'll start up. So for this demo, I'm using the Llama C++ model that's available publicly, and that one it's fairly slow to run on my MacBook. This is one of the other problems because everything is running locally on your computer. The vector database is running on my machine, and also the model is running on my machine right now. So technically, I could run this demo without any internet connection or anything like that. The only reason I'm connected to the internet is because I'm talking to you folks. So you can see here that the Weaviate vector store is locally deployed. You can now query this, right? So here, if you're interested in what roles is Weaviate hiring for, it's doing 4 things. It's sending this as a query to the vector database. It retrieves 4 documents that have the highest similarity, and then it takes those retrieved documents, sends them in as context to Llama C++, and it answers this question using those documents as information. So it's doing retrieval based question answering, which is implemented in LangChain, by the way. So we could talk a little bit more about that later on. But this, you see here, what's happening. This is the problem, right? I can give the entire presentation while this is going on. So if you're interested in this, actually what you should do is you need to have an EC2 instance from Amazon, and then you can kind of juice up the specs on the computer that you're renting out. But with my M1 Mac, which is fairly powerful, it takes a really long time to generate anything, and we could probably get through this entire session without us seeing tokens that are printed. So what I did is, in prep for this, I ran this beforehand. So I ran a bunch of questions. So I asked, what roles is the core engineering team hiring for? And then these tokens were generated one by one. And then it also tells you the answer is based on these source documents, these 4 source documents. And then this particular question that I asked here, what roles is Weaviate hiring for? It tells you everything. It also actually hallucinates a bit here as well. So there's more prompt engineering that can go into this. But we're not really hiring for a developer relations specialist, actually. So it
Yeah, and if we do, I should probably know about that, right?
yeah. So it's still here. It's working. I can guarantee you. It's just running the inference and generating the tokens words one by one.
Cool. I mean, and here's the thing, because we talked about it as well, and you said that there's already been some improvements to like the original private GPT library, and it's just like a matter of like it updating. Like this is an early days thing, so the power itself that maybe your laptop has is one issue, but like the other issue is like it's still early days. But the idea is, if you, for example, cannot afford to send your sensitive information outside, but still you get something like, like a GPT like request and then generate response based on your own data. The future is there, right? Like, and we could already start playing with it, right? So this is mind blowing that you can actually do it yourself privately.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's definitely where the future is going. And internally, we've been discussing having more support around this whole stack of the vector database as well as the large language model deployed. Oh, there it is. Okay, there it goes.
Oh, it's coming up.
You see the tokens coming up. Yeah. So we'll talk more about this soon around how you can make it easier so that you don't have to go to external repositories or playing around with demos like this. You'll be able to take your own LLMs that you've trained or fine-tuned on your own data, and then very easily connect them through a module to Weaviate. So yeah, that's something that's in the works.
This would be really cool for companies that are in healthcare, but also finance. So this reminds me of the team too that participated in the ODSC hackathon, where they're sending, what was it, like the symptoms or what the previous existing conditions of patients. So it'd be cool if this can kind of like help the doctor diagnosing, but also treating patients. So this is really cool.
Yeah, that's yeah. I think all the regulated fields where you have to be careful with information, this would be very useful for it. And I think Epic is already working with companies to implement these LLMs, and I can guarantee you they have some sort of clause in their agreement where the LLM has to be deployed locally on-prem or on their own servers. Yeah.
Nice, this is amazing. And like, so what are the, like, do we know anything about like the parameters around these LLMs, or like how big are they? And
yeah, so this is a 7 billion parameter large language model. So it's not a, when large language models are concerned, it's a bit of a mini LLM. And even that it takes a while to run on my computer. So I can actually show you the one that's on a C++. This is the one that I'm running on here. And so it's a fairly popular open source version of Llama, the Llama model from Meta. And the cool thing with this will be that we're going to have newer and newer open source models, and then eventually people are going to bring them in, fine tune them on their own private data, and then not open source them. So that there needs to be support going forward for this stack of LLM vector database, all on-prem, all private. Nothing ever leaves the confines of your server. And even yesterday, not yesterday, but I think a couple of days ago, I was reading a paper over the weekend around another open source model. The paper is called Less is More, Lima. And that was another open source model from Facebook with 65 billion parameters. And that tends to outperform some of the state-of-the-art models that we have. So like the field the direction is going in, I think having this private stack where everything is locally or privately deployed, I think is fairly important.
Nice. And we have Nikunj saying, great. He definitely enjoyed your presentation on private LLMs or like local running LLMs locally. So thanks, Nikunj. So yeah, and just a quick reminder for anyone that arrived a bit late. Feel free to ask questions, drop us, just hi, say where you messaging us from. And actually, speaking of the devil, we have a question. So let's see if we can handle it. How much amount of data used here to fine tune this 7-bean parameter model? Like how many docs to get standard results?
Yeah, so I didn't do any fine tuning of this model actually. This is purely powered through retrieval from a vector database and then question answering based on that retrieval as context. So let me bring this guy up. So you can see here, I asked the question, what roles is Weaviate hiring for? And this is the generated answer from Llama C++, and it bases this answer off of these retrieved 4 documents, right? So the document that I showed earlier is just automatically chunked. And you can see here that the answer is based off of these 4 retrieved documents. So there's no fine tuning here. It's purely retrieval-based generation. If you had fine-tuned, if you take your own data and you fine-tune it, the answers I can guarantee would be even better. That's another really interesting question. Maybe we can talk about this in the future, where how do you weigh fine-tuning versus retrieval augmented generation, where you just have a vector database that you're keeping up to date. The minute a data point comes in, you put it in. We actually have some content planned around that as well, so I don't want to spoil that, but this is another topic that I'm super excited about.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for sharing this. Yep. Got it. Thanks. Yeah. Thank you. And then similarly on the topic that you were just talking like about, possibly like you load the documents, all the chunking and everything. I think Erica is walking right into this very nicely around like ingesting unstructured data, and then more importantly around PDFs in this case.
What a smooth transition. Thank you.
Very nice, huh? I improvised.
Yeah.
You could hear that.
Yeah, so day-to-day data comes in different data sources, and the main question is how can you take this data and import it into Weaviate? So yesterday, if you wouldn't mind sharing my screen.
I don't mind at
Yesterday,
all. Oops.
Shukri and I wrote this blog post on ingesting PDFs into Weaviate. And in this demo, we are using Unstructured, which is an open source company working at the cutting edge of PDF processing and other data sources, and then extracting the content from these files and then converting it into a machine readable format. So one thing about PDFs is like to humans, it makes sense, but there hasn't been a case where, our computers can understand it and then extract content from that. So that's really what Unstructured is doing. So in this blog post, we talk about optical character recognition process and what this is. So it converts different types of visual documents into a machine readable format. And there are models like Layout LM v3 and Donut. And what's special about these 2 models is that it leverages both text and visual information by using a multimodal transformer. So it's visually looking at the PDF, and then it's extracting the content from it. So what Unstructured has, maybe I should go on the website, is they have these bricks. Yeah, so they have 3 bricks for document preprocessing, so partitioning, cleaning, and staging. So in the demo that Shukri made, I believe we have a link to it in the bio. Right? We're using the partition brick to extract information from 2 research papers that are publicly available. So we're using, they call it an element when you are taking, so like a title, an abstract, and then introduction of a research paper is like the standard structure, and they call that elements. So what we're doing is extracting the content within an element. So I have a notebook. You can follow it in the blog post, but also I just decided to run it myself just to confirm that it works. So in here, we're just connecting to our Weaviate client, and we're using OpenAI, but you can use whichever third-party provider that you'd like. And then we are defining our schema. So we have the document, and then we have the source, which is the source of the text. And then we also have the abstract, because we're really just focusing on the abstract part. And this is where we're going to ask questions. So I'm importing just one paper. I'm using the partition brick. And now you can see it's successfully extracted the abstract. So this paper is about house price classification. The problem with this is actually that the paper is in a 2-column format. So it kind of overran into the introduction part of it rather than just extracting the abstract. So there is a GitHub issue on actually fixing this and improving it. So I'd suggest giving it a thumbs up. All right, so once we have the abstract, we're gonna import this into Weaviate. And then now we're at the fun part where you can query this research paper along with the querying the abstract. So this is just a simple BM25 search where we're extracting or we're finding the paper that is related to house prices, which is the paper that we uploaded. And you can see that it's citing the source of paper 2. But that's like just a simple example just to see that we successfully got it working. But the cool part is that now you can use generative search. So the prompt is to summarize the following academic abstract in a one-liner for a layperson. So let's kind of simplify this abstract, which, as you could see previously, was extremely long. I just want a one-liner. Like, how can I sell this to someone that maybe isn't familiar with the paper? So then you could see that using machine learning models trained with structured and unstructured data, yada, yada, yada. It's like it successfully summarized the paper in a one-liner, but the main issue with this is that it's 2 columns, so it kind of grabbed the abstract along with the introduction, so it's not completely accurate, but it works, and that's the best part, is that you're able to chat with your PDFs, and the unstructured also supports PowerPoint documents and a whole bunch of different kind. So I'd recommend checking out the blog post along with the demo. Okay. And you can see the different kind of sources that they support. Good.
Nice, this is really cool. I mean, like, I guess this is like one of the big problems where people have like vast amount of data, right, and information, and then sometimes taking it out and then putting it into Weaviate. That's usually like the harder part than running a Weaviate query often, right? So I do like this, that we have like some recommendation, and that structure helps us with this chunking and setting things up, even if it messes up a little bit with double columns. That's part of the game, that's how we learn and evolve.
There's also 2 things. So there is a GitHub issue on creating a Weaviate brick in unstructured. So if you go to the bottom, you can give this a thumbs up. Oh, nice, and Connor commented on it. But then we also have 6 thumbs up, so that's pretty good. They're very community driven, so the more likes one issue has, the more likely it is to get developed. So
maybe we should share a link for it in the description later on. We could add it after the video. And guess what? Thomas Hacker thinks it's a great work on the blog post. Amazing use case. Thanks, Thomas.
So much, Thomas. Nice.
Yeah. And Philip is saying hello. Hi, Philip.
Hello.
Philip. I have a
Good to
question
see you.
about
Oh,
PDF
go for it.
ingestion. Does it, so this is different from the OCR application you were talking about, right? Technically, I could, oh, it's the same.
Yeah, so the OCR is just like the process of it, but what unstructured has is different models that have implemented this. So there's actually a benchmark, this one, where the task is to see how well it's extracting the content from PDFs and then seeing how well it's doing that. So yeah, sorry, unstructured has different models that you can use. Like Layout LM-v3 and Donut are the best performing models right now with this benchmark. So is why I highlighted it.
Okay. Are
Because
these
it
models
uses
also
vision
open
and
source?
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
You can see it all in Hugging Face actually. And they have a great blog post as well on OCR.
Okay. I see.
Yeah.
Nice.
And is
And
this,
it looks like we have a keen contributor as well, by the way. So I just wanted to give Nikoja a shout out. You know, if you contribute, like, that would be amazing. That would be amazing.
Maybe socks, t-shirt. Anyway, Zen, you had another follow-up question.
oh yeah. Is it always the case that regardless of what type of input file you have, whether PowerPoint, whether PDF, it's always this OCR module, and then it extracts the data from your input, and then it puts it into like a JSON, right? Is that okay? I see.
Yep. And then also in the notebook from Shukri, he starts off with just the basics, which I think is really cool. So just using that first partition brick, extracting the first, so this is like the title, and then you have the authors, but then it also has the abstract. And then what's cool is that you can literally just take this data, export it, and then just vectorize that, import it into Weaviate. So you don't have to do the like end-to-end kind of demo that that's at the end of this notebook, but you could just stop here and import it into Weaviate and vectorize it. So many options.
Okay. Yeah, that's super cool because I didn't know that it was all OCR driven. They were just doing optical character recognition. I thought they were actually like, reading the file, then extracting the content, and then organizing it based on here's the title, here's the abstract, here's paragraph 2, so on. But that's super cool. Okay, yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for clarifying.
You're muted, Sebastian.
Damn it. Yes, I was just saying that we don't have that many questions, and that was a test if anyone is paying attention to me. Just kidding. So I guess I will recommend everyone to read through this blog post. And a little birdie told me that this is not the final ingestion of unstructured data type blog post that we will have. So there will be more. Just wink, wink, let us know. And then I would like to pass on the microphone to Dan, who will talk to us about something that we're also very excited about, and that's the Weaviate Forum. Hey, Dan, what can you tell us?
Hey, everyone. Good to see you again after quite a while. So today we are happy and proud to introduce the Weaviate Forum, which we've been looking for a while. And you can find it at forum.weaviate.io. I'm going to see a bunch of topics there. So first, let me go a bit over the reasons why we have the forum in the first place when everybody's on Slack already. So the biggest problem is that Slack isn't indexed by search engines. So if you have a question about Weaviate and you search for it on a search engine, maybe you're going to find a Slack Overflow post, but nothing from Slack. Also, if you want to join Slack and check out stuff, you need to sign up. While on the forum, anybody can visit, so you can go there right now without having to create an account. And Slack is great for quick conversations, asking about something really easy, but conversations tend to get lost over time. There's lots of messages, they are fleeting, and our team also has a hard time keeping tabs on what we've addressed and what's still unsolved. While on the forum, you can mark answers as accepted and you can easily keep track of what conversations still need attention. And then another problem for our team and also for you as a user is that when you ask something on Slack, you don't know if it's been already asked before. But on the forum, if you type a question, the forum will suggest similar topics. So actually, let me demonstrate that. The forum engine we use is called Discourse. And since they have a lot of topics, I'm going to try to search for something. Let's say we want to build a bot that lets you search by voice. So I'm typing that question there. And you can see that it already found some similar topics here, and you can maybe already find your answer. So in that regard, this will prevent a lot of FAQs. And maybe you won't even need to ask a question because already it has been answered. So let's see how this works with longer threads. If something on the forum is hotly debated and has a lot of posts, like this example here on Discourse has 300 posts. On Slack, you need to go for all of those to figure out what the current status is. You need to ask people. But the forum has a very useful feature called Summarize this topic. And now it reduced everything to only 60 or so posts. And it also can summarize using AI. Let me go back to original view. And this is AI at its finest, going through 320-something forum posts and telling you what they're all about.
Do you need to click the summarize button?
Right. Yeah, that could be improved. I'm not sure why that blank screen is displayed there, but there we go. A one paragraph summary, kind of like talking to a PDF, but here it's a very long forum thread. So we would like to welcome you on our forum, and to that end, we created this monthly introductions thread. And we'd like to get to know you, and you can also get to know other users in the community. That's also a bit more difficult on Slack, but here everybody has profiles. You can see their bio and their link and social media handles and so on. So please join the forum, and we'd love for you to introduce yourself in this thread. And we're going to run it monthly to help new users meet others in the community.
I also want to add, Dan, this is great. And there actually is already a question on ingesting PDFs to Weaviate. I would like to hear feedback from external users on what they think about this integrations and how they're currently dealing with PDF documents.
Yeah, thanks for posting that, Erika. We are just launching the forum, so we're glad to get more content and more users there. And I just gave you a heart.
Thank you.
Very nice.
We have a bunch of categories you can see here in my left sidebar. Most likely, new users will be interested in the support category. But if you've built something, we'd love for you to showcase it. So Shukri, Erika mentioned him earlier. He also built this demo with Fixie, and we posted about it. And don't worry too much about where to post things. The general category is a catch-all, and we're going to categorize it later if it doesn't fit. But in a nutshell, if it's a question that can have a very specific answer, that's best asked on Stack Overflow. So if there's one best answer, Stack Overflow is the place for it. If there's something you want to discuss in more detail, please post on the forum. And if it's something real quick, feel free to post on Slack. And over time, we hope to migrate from Slack to the forum, because the forum is much better suited to become this permanent, easily searchable repository of knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. To your point, Dan, I think we will be encouraging over time more and more for more people to actually come to the forum to ask questions, to get the answers, especially by the fact that like we see so many questions that have been asked over and over again, and then we basically losing that wealth of knowledge that's in the Slack. And sometimes people answer this question in a really nice way, and then maybe the next time you answer the question, maybe you don't have the time to give the right answer. And funny enough, like in engineering, Marcin, who's very active on the Slack and answers questions, he actually has a document with like ready-made answers for some of the questions, which is hilarious, right? But he shouldn't need to do that. Basically, now Marcin can provide like the best possible answer once on the forum, and it should be so much easier for everyone to find. And you know what? I also say that like Slack is great for those communications, but it's not so great for finding the info. So it's not necessarily people's fault that they didn't go and search for has somebody asked this, right? If the search is not so helpful. But in this case, you may start typing your question and then you have that prompt like, oh, wow, like there's somebody already, like answered this. So without even thinking to search, you might be able to get a prompt with an answer or a post. So this is pretty awesome.
And if you give good answers, you get lots of likes, and you have this extensive profile page with your top links, most replied to, and so on. It's kind of a good way to build credibility in the community and reputation.
Nice. Yeah. And Svetlana doesn't know it yet, like our in-house, like our head of design, but that they may be asking her to create like special t-shirts, designs and everything for like the most active members on the forum. And that's definitely going to be easy for us to see who should be rewarded with a cool t-shirt, right? So should be cool. Nice. Do I hear any questions from the audience or hear or see? Nothing at the moment. Any final words? Anyone else here? Yes? No?
I love the forum. Looking forward to being active on it. This is, I think Marcin was the OG. He created the OG forum in the notebook, and then Dan kind of modernized Marcin's forum. So thank you, Dan.
Very nice. Before I let you go with the next thing, Dan, look at this. Like we have Thomas, who definitely needs a t-shirt. Well, Thomas, there will be an easy way, like help our community with like answer questions, or even come in and like help us make it active. We'll definitely appreciate it. T-shirts can be arranged.
Super easy to sign up. You can use GitHub or email password. So we hope to see you there.
Yeah, and there's also, I know you told me, Dan, earlier that we are working on like a Google authentication. And then from what you explained to me, if you use the same email for email password as your Google account, then we will be able to make that connection, right?
That's right. So we're going to add Twitter and Google logins. And if they refer to your email account that you use for both, then you can sign up right now with that email and later link your Twitter or Google account.
Cool. Very nice. Thank you for this presentation. That was really good. And I'm super excited about the forum. So hopefully we'll get to see more people coming over and then using the forum with us. So having said that, I'm going to take this segue because I think I already kind of like I'm going to be one of the first users as well for the forum. And there's something that, like I mentioned right at the start, that I find very important, and it's something that I want to work on within the company. So we would like to improve how people use our clients, like especially, and that'll be like starting with a Python client. So I even created a post on the forum that kind of like highlights some of the high level of like ideas that we wanted to do. But in general, the idea is like, hey, how can we help you maybe with working to begin with Python, then probably JavaScript, TypeScript next, and then all the clients will follow. But like, how can we help you like in Python to like develop your code faster? How can we help you build with Weaviate faster? And then kind of like, and then I think the first focus is going to be like, how can we help you maybe create and manage the collections, do your Weaviate vector configuration, maybe some CRUD operations around data. How can we help you make like search through data in an easier way? So I definitely recommend checking out this post, but I'd like to also walk you through it in terms of some of the ideas that we had, and then questions you can drop them here during the podcast here, but also you could drop them on the forum later. That would be definitely more very, very helpful. So here's the first thing that I kind of want to introduce, like the concept of collections. So that in general, like if you look at the NoSQL world, like just like in SQL you have tables, in NoSQL world you have data collections. I think in Weaviate we used to call them classes, but I'd like to start calling them collections, and that might be a little shift at some point. But the whole idea is that we want to create this API that's super easy to work with, right? Like, so if you wanted to create a new collection, it should be something as easy as like, hey, client.collection.create, right? And then just provide a name, and that will create a collection with like default configuration. You want to specify which vectorizer you want to use? No problem. We would like to have like this vector config where you can specify the vectorizer. So in this case, maybe I want to use OpenAI, or it could be Hugging Face, or Cohere, whichever other model you want to use. And then if the cool thing about maybe using this vector config is that it should it is like a class, right? In this case, so if you start typing in your IDE, you will start getting prompts from IDE saying like, oh, so here are the possible parameters that you can pass in. Maybe you can pass in the name, or you can specify which model you want to do, etc., etc. The other cool thing that I would like to introduce is, what if instead of specifying which properties to be vectorized when you define the properties, what if we could just do it as part of the vector configuration? So you could say like, hey, I want to use Cohere with multilingual model, and I want to vectorize the title and description, right? So you don't even need to think about the data schema, but you can actually say like, my data may have like 20 different properties, but these are the two that matter to me. And that could be pretty cool in this case. And then separately, if you do want to provide the data schema itself, we would call it like the properties. So you could create like maybe an array of properties. And then again, we would have this property object that will give you prompts in your IDE. So you could say like, okay, I could give a name, description, data type, etc., etc. And then you could create, again, a new collection with this configuration. It's pretty cool. I think that from me reading this should be a lot easier to kind of like follow and read your code, and also like typing all of that will be way, way easier. The other thing, if you want to like get information about how's your collection configured, you should be able to, for example, go like, hey, I want to go to the collection and then get the configuration for articles. And then you could, for example, print your vector config or properties, etc. Or separately, additional options, we could either say .get configuration, or we could have .configuration.get, right? That would be something that I'd like to hear feedback maybe from the community, which approach works. Or maybe there's a third one that we haven't seen yet. So it would be definitely cool to hear from you. The other thing is, if you'd like to update a configuration, it should be as straightforward as just saying like, hey, I want to take collection update configuration, and then maybe you can pass the vector config or properties and send that update. You don't want to use a configuration anymore, a collection more, you should be able to just do .collection.delete, pass the name, boom, done, right? And then that should be super straightforward to work with. Then the next thing is like around data operations, and we have more examples around, but I intentionally we don't have like extensively all the possible examples. But if you wanted to operate on the data, right, what you should be able to do is just say, okay, I want to go to collection and get this data object, which is kind of like something that just creates an object that connects you to this specific collection, right? So this data object, then I can say, for example, hey, I want to go and insert an object with like a full bar, right? Or I could insert a whole bunch of objects. So you could actually pass in an array of maybe 4 objects in one go. And look how elegant this is, right? Like it's actually pretty straightforward. You have this data, and then you just insert objects into it straight away. So I hope this is going to be appealing to you. If you just want to get a bunch of objects, you should be able to do something as simple as, this should just say data, but you should say like data.get 5 objects, right? Or maybe you could get the data with a where filter. And then again, that should be straightforward. Then updating an object could be something like, hey, I want to update the data by ID, or UUID, and then you could pass in the UUID and the object that you want to update. Deleting an object could be as simple as data.delete and then pass in the UUID, or data.delete and then you pass in the where filter. And then that would automatically delete all the objects where the price is greater than 100. Should be kind of cool. And then for search, I want to have actually a separate post for it, but just to whet your appetites here for the next meal. The idea is that we could reuse the same data object, and then you could do something like for semantic search, like what we call at the moment near text. Maybe we could do something like data.text search. Then you pass in the concept properties that you want to return, and then the limit. So let's say I only want 10 objects. So in this case, we would be going away from the builder pattern that we do at the moment into something that should be more readable. And then similarly, we could have something like data.image search or data.hybrid search, right? And then each of those would have their own parameters. And of course, there will be a more complex one that it would be like a catch-all sort of approach. But yeah, like I'd love to hear your feedback about it, because there's definitely something that I would like to introduce. And then we are at the moment in the phase of discovery around what are the good options, what people may find useful. And it could be around the syntax, but also ability to use objects like this, right? Where if you want to specify filter, then we should be able to tell you that, oh, when you use filter, you could use property, operator, value. The IDE should be able to help you, but also the operator, instead of a string like it used to be so far, it could be an enumerator, right? So we could pass in an enum, so you will never get it wrong. Like the number of times I have to go like, oh yeah, I want to run a where filter, and I was like, okay, so how did we call like less than, right? Is it less than, or is it fewer than, or what is the term, right? Is it all lowercase, is it uppercase? You don't worry, we just have like maybe operator dot, right? And then you see all the options, and I think that's pretty cool. So yeah, that's me in terms of this topic.
I love where this is going. Looks like somebody got some inspiration from MongoDB in some places.
Maybe, yeah. Like, well, worked there a few years, so you know, it helps.
I'm curious if what do you think of portability of code from the GraphQL syntax? Because a lot of users play with the console to consult their queries, and then how easy would it be to copy that query, paste it into your client, and with minimal modifications arrive at client code?
Yeah, I think that's the thing I'm trying to go away from, because just because we use GraphQL underneath, first of all, doesn't mean that when you write your code in Python or JavaScript that you should be aware that there's GraphQL underneath. So in this case, I'm trying to create something for Python developers that they can think Python first. That's the idea. However, if you do have your GraphQL query ready and you just want to, take it and run it, we could have like a data.raw GraphQL search, right? And then in this case, you could just pass in the raw string. The problem with GraphQL is that you don't get any of the support and type validation or when you run it directly in Python, or when you run it directly in JavaScript, and that just becomes very hard. So yes, the intention is to actually pretty much hide the fact that there's GraphQL underneath. It's not that we are ashamed of it or nothing at all. It's just you shouldn't need to worry about it. You as a Python developer or JavaScript developer, all you want to do is like, I want to delete an object, or I want to query and run a similarity search. You shouldn't need to worry about how we structure it ourselves.
Right, and that would also cover the separation between the REST API and GraphQL, because GraphQL is read-only, and the REST API is separate for mutations.
Yeah, exactly, right? So in this moment, for example, when we have data.delete, like you don't need to worry, is there GraphQL there, or is it a REST? Which one do I call? It doesn't matter to you, right? Like you want to call .get, that's a REST call. You want to call near text, that's a GraphQL usually, right? So your head was kind of like spinning. Am I doing this? Am I doing that? In this case, you don't need to worry about it. That's our problem. If one day, for some reason, we decide to move away from GraphQL completely and have something else instead, that'll
Hint
be
gRPC.
Yeah, it might be a hint. Like I'm not stating anything just now, but there is a possibility. And we have a question. Is there a plan to add this kind of validation when using client.query.raw? I'm not sure if there's validation around that GraphQL structure. I think that's like a really difficult problem. I don't know. I would have to ask Dirk, who's actually mostly working with the client. So the raw thing for now, I want to stay away from for now, but I want to create something that allows you to very quickly write code. Like, and I'm also doing it on a selfish point of view. Like sometimes I go to events and I speak in front of large audiences, and I like to, whip up my IDE and kind of like start writing code. I want to be able to just write super fast code that is super easy to read, where I don't even have to explain what I'm writing. People should be able to like see it and understand. Oops. Yeah.
This is that last point I wanted to highlight, because I think it's super important, because right now, coming from a background in Python development, and this right now the proposal is only for the Python client, but that what we want to do is make the clients feel more native to the language that they're written for. So if you're a Python developer, you should be able to use the Python client, and it should behave the way your other Python libraries and modules behave. So if you're a data scientist that's using scikit-learn and all of these other Python libraries, we want the Python Weaviate client to behave similarly. So you don't have to go out and learn something outside of your comfort zone. It should just be second nature as a Python developer to you. And then same thing for all of the other clients. And you don't need to worry about, like Sebastian said, that GraphQL is actually what's happening underneath the hood, or I need to write in strings that are then easy to turn into GraphQL. We should take care of that on the back end. And I think that is going to help improve the developer experience significantly. Like the time to writing your first query, the time to inserting your first object into Weaviate. I think I'm super excited about this.
Absolutely.
Plus one and excitement.
Yeah. So I will probably do it in like a small phases to begin with. It's not going to be a big change to straight away. And one thing that about doing things like client.collection, because there is no collection namespace at the moment. So the idea is that we could do it side by side. So this change is not going to be a breaking change for anyone. What you do so far will continue to work. But then once we figure it out and get approval from the community in general, we will over time deprecate the old approach and then use this as a new one. But easily for at least 6 months, you will be able to do both side by side. And I'm sure with the new developer experience, you'll be won over by the new approach. And that's not going to be much of a fight. The other things that we can also introduce is like in Python or most languages, you have the for in loops. What if we could have like something like for in data.iterate, right? And then in this case, we could automatically give you a system that you could create an iterator that uses the cursor API for you, and then you could iterate through all of your objects with just like one line of code, right? Like, that would be really cool. I just realized, because I'm not sure if I answered Thomas's question very well, but by the way, like, thank you for asking the question. I want to just come back to it, and I would definitely take it as a feedback, as a challenge, kind of like, hey, can we address that? So just because I didn't have a good answer for it yet, that doesn't mean that this question wasn't valid. It's absolutely valid. And we'll definitely look into it, because if there is some maybe an opportunity to validate your raw queries from Python, why not? Maybe we could do something. So we'll give it a go. I just don't have the answer myself. Cool. So yeah, let's hope to have some help from the community on the forum. We'll have like a nice discussion around the unstructured and the clients, and we can make it work. Nice. So we have a couple of more items. So next one, I have Dan to talk to us about the new HowTo Search pages, right? So Dan, take it away. I think you're still muted.
Hello, everyone. It's been quite a while since I last spoke to you. In the meantime, we've launched a bunch of how-to pages, which we aim to be task-oriented. So the first category is how to search. And here on our documentation site, you can start with the search basics. And it's very pointed examples. So how to get something directly. This is the code. How to limit returned objects, how to paginate, and so on. And for similarity search, probably the most often used feature, you just have the code with near text. So these pages are probably going to become your first hit when you look for how to do something specific with Weaviate. So far, we've covered search almost exhaustively. Last night, we published generative search. And a lot of this work has been done by my colleague JP, who unfortunately is in Australia and cannot attend Weaviate Air. And these days, we are working also on how to manage data. We have a couple articles here, and I'm working on cross-references, and that should be ready before the end of this week. So again, we'd like to invite you to check out the new how-tos. Before that, we had install and configure, and now we have manage data and especially search, which is probably going to be your most referenced section on our documentation.
Yeah, I really love the new search, how to search pages. Honestly, it's very similar to what I was talking about with the Python client, where at the moment, if you want to know like, oh, how do I do BM25 search, especially if you're new to Weaviate, you sort of have to go to like our reference API to then go to GraphQL, and suddenly like you have to know where things are. While in this case, we just say like, hey, you want to run a BM25 search, here's a page, here's what you need to know. And I think over time, this is going to take over a lot of the content from those reference pages. Like, let's face it, those reference APIs should be references, not where you go and learn everything. So yeah, definitely love it. And there'll be quite a few more coming up for sure. And then also when we have the new APIs with the new collections, I think we'll cover it here too. Erica, you unmuted yourself for a brief second.
Oh yeah, I thought we're kind of tight on time and I want to show the recipes really quick.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. So thank you for presenting this. So Erica, tell us about recipes.
Yeah, so this is also complementing the work that Dan and JP have done with HowTo. So if you wouldn't mind sharing my screen, this is with inspiration from the OpenAI cookbooks. We're calling it the Weaviate Recipes, so we're chefing it up. And the idea is to give you an easy way to take this code and then just run it yourself. So starting off with similarity search. Right now, it's organized in a way where each third-party provider has their own folder. But here is just one example of running similarity search with OpenAI embedding. So first installing the dependencies, configuring it. So this is where you would put in your OpenAI API key, link to your Weaviate instance, and then authorization if you have that set. This is an example of a schema. So the data that I'm using is the same exact one that Dan and JP are using. So the Jeopardy questions, which is just 10 objects, but it just gets the point across and gets you started fairly quickly. So showing you how to create the schema and where you specify the vectorizer. Especially, I feel like sometimes this might be overlooked. You are providing your API key, but then when you forget to include it in your schema. So the goal is for people to just take this notebook and then replicate it themselves, how to import the data. And then since we're doing similarity search, I've shared 3 operators that we have in Weaviate for text object, which is near text, near object, and near vector. So you can literally just copy and paste this and take things out as you need. But yeah, and one thing is, like I said, each provider has their own. So right now I have Cohere as well. This is a work in progress. This will be done by the end of the week, but if you would like to see specific features, we can have this discussion in the forum. So I can kind of know which area to focus on next. So this week is similarity search, but I can do all types of things, maybe next generative search, hybrid search, VM25, the list goes on. So I'm looking forward to feedback on this. And thank you, Zen, for the emojis. That's hilarious.
Very nice. Yeah, I think that the idea is that with those recipes, this could be a place where people can come like, hey, I have like a specific thing in mind. I don't necessarily need to read a ton of text explaining what's going on. I just want to go through the code, and there'll be like a brief explanations. And I think that'll be good. And Python is, again, we'll start with Python, but I do already have plans around like JavaScript and TypeScript examples to also show people like how to do that in those worlds. Yeah, it probably shows that I have a JavaScript background, right? So I'm biased, but obviously in our world, Python is like one of the most used languages. This is amazing. I'm super excited. And I guess, and we're open to contributions as well. If somebody thinks that there's a recipe that we need, a pull request would be welcome. So be cool. Will be cool. Okay. So I have a question that is unrelated to anything we're talking about that comes from the audience. So somebody asked, is it possible to group by multiple attributes in, well, I assume Weaviate? So my answer is yes, it is possible. Yeah, you could just provide multiple as part of it, but that could also be a good question on the forum. So if you find like more people are asking this, like we could post it there, and we could give you an answer. Unfortunately, I can't share links on YouTube. Otherwise, I would have pointed you in the right direction. But yeah, I can definitely say it's possible. So thank you for the question. But yes, now we can come back to the recipes. So anyone like any ideas, anyone, on what would you like to cook or help Erica cook?
Group by multiple properties. That's fun.
I mean, yeah, like, so it could be like a cook recipes around various aggregations, right?
I think it would also be really cool to have like popular frameworks and then recipes on, like for example, what I showed earlier with the private GPT stuff, retrieval question answering or retrieval augmented generation. How do you use a framework like LangChain with Weaviate as a vector store to do retrieval augmented generation, or how do you use it to implement chain of thought? And then, like, if I wanted to do that for myself, I could just start off with a recipe, and then 80% of the work is done, and then I could modify small lines of code here or there. I think that would be super awesome. Yeah,
I agree. Makes sense.
Nice. Perfect. All right. In this case, unless there are any final words, we'll do the waving things. And thank you all for watching. Thank you for spending this time. We really appreciate you spending an hour with us. I hope you enjoyed watching what we had to share. There's always so much to share, and we already have plans for the next release. We'll bring more people. I think the next one is going to be pretty crowded, which is making me super excited. So this is going to be great. But until then, thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. Have a great day, evening, morning, whatever it is. And see you next time. Bye.
thanks everybody. Bye. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.